On October 4th, 2009, a 6-year-old elementary school student named Zachary Christie was suspended from school, given 45 days in his district's reform school, and even faced expulsion. So what did Zachary do exactly to have such severe punishments inflicted upon him? Well, Zachary brought a camping utensil to school that day which had a fork, knife, and spoon attachment. Because his school had a zero-tolerance policy against any form of weapons, they saw this as a violation of this policy. Zero-tolerance policies are designed to punish all students uniformly, no matter the offense or their intent. Now, is it really fair that a 6-year-old should be suspended just for bringing a camping utensil with which to eat his meal? Zachary had no malice or ill intent behind bringing that utensil. He just wanted to eat his lunch. However, it doesn't really matter if it was fair or not. The school had a zero-tolerance policy. Zero-tolerance policies are designed on a one-size-fits-all basis. I think that is just foolish. One size cannot fit all. Each student and each situation is individual and unique. Zero-tolerance policies undermine a school administrator and school officials' ability to exercise appropriate discipline upon their students and look at things on a case-to-case basis. Zero-tolerance policies not only undermine their ability to inflict just punishments on their students, but they also have a very strong negative effect on a student's attitude towards school and education as a whole. Studies have found that zero-tolerance policies adversely affect a student's overall academic performance, social, mental, and emotional well-being, and are overall ineffective and obsolete in today's educational system. So I'm going to explain to you a little bit about what a zero-tolerance policy really means, when they came to be, and how implementing restorative disciplinary policies can improve the negative effects that zero tolerance has had on our school systems. To define zero tolerance policies, I will quote Todd A. DeMitchell, a professor of education in the Department of Education and Justice Studies program at John and H. Irene University. He quotes zero tolerance policies as follows. Zero-tolerance policies are a disciplinary approach intended to send the message that certain behaviors will not be tolerated on school grounds by punishing all offenses, major and minor, uniformly and severely. Now, zero-tolerance policies are a fairly recent development in schools. They were first introduced in the late 1990s in response to the 1999 Columbine high school shooting, the war on drugs in California, the three strikes laws, and most importantly, they were introduced in a way and as in an attempt to implement the federal government's Gun-Free Schools Act of 1994, which prohibited all weapons of any kind on school property. Zero-tolerance policies have been proven to have an adverse effect on the student's academic performance. Nicholas Triplett, a Ph.D. research student at the University of North Carolina, cites data taken from a scientific study in which data was gathered from 26,000 middle schools and high schools across the United States. That data showed that nearly 2 million students had been suspended or expelled in the 2009-2010 school year alone. That translated to 1 in every 9 students being expelled at least once that school year. This high rate of expulsion doubled the likelihood and percentage of college dropouts across the country from 16% to 32%. It has been shown that suspending students takes them out of a structured learning environment and increases the amount of time they spend unsupervised, leading to more mistakes and fewer opportunities to form relationships with people their age. Zero-tolerance policies also affect a student's mental and emotional well-being. In an interview discussing suspension and expulsion in schools, Dr. Jenna Saul, a child and adolescent psychiatrist, said, "Expelling and suspending children rarely does anything good for anybody, and expulsion is especially disruptive." In his paper, Nicholas Triplett also cites another study that found data showing a strong link between severe and inappropriate uses of school discipline and students developing mental illnesses, including post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, and aggressive behavior in and out of school. Zero-tolerance policies have been in place for nearly 3 decades, but have done nothing to prevent misbehavior, deter gun violence, or create safer environments in our school. They don't give students a chance to learn and grow and learn from their mistakes. I want to show you a political cartoon that was published in the New York Times. This was published in a discussion on zero-tolerance policies and their ineffectiveness. Now in baseball, batters are given 3 strikes to hit the ball. This gives them an opportunity to learn from the mistakes that they made previously, adjust their stance, their hand position, the time that they swing. It gives them a chance to adjust and to change. However, with zero-tolerance policies, students are only given 1 strike. 1 strike and they're out. This makes no sense whatsoever and is not fair or just to students. It gives them no opportunity to learn and grow or develop communication skills. I propose that restorative disciplinary practices be implemented in schools in order to combat the negative effects produced by zero-tolerance policies. Restorative discipline involves applying principles and practices designed to teach students conflict resolution communication skills. It involves students reconciling differences, finding solutions to their conflicts, repairing damaged relationships, and changing disruptive behaviors. Restorative discipline centers on maintaining a high quality of education while also teaching students to be better students, better people, and how they can better contribute to their community. It is also centered on looking at misbehavior and conflict as being between people. It focuses on the problems and the solutions rather than the punishments being equal. It's not focused on instilling fear in students on making mistakes. It helps them learn from mistakes and learn how to communicate with one another and solve problems. Restorative discipline policies ensure a safe and healthy environment in schools. Education professional and author Loana Meyer, in her book, The School Leader's Guide to Restorative Discipline, writes that schools with restorative disciplinary policies in place have better academic performance, students have better conflict resolution, there is less bullying, and the schools have happier students overall because there is justice in their discipline. This is an image that was created to show the contrasting situations between a zero-tolerance policy school and a restorative disciplinary policy school. So in this case, the situation, a student named Carlos gets in a fight with his parents before leaving for school, so he's running a bit late. We'll start with the zero-tolerance policy education system. So, when Carlos arrives at school, he's met with metal detectors and police searches. Because he was already running late and he was met with these metal detectors, he's late to his first period class. And rather than address the situation calmly and ignore it altogether, his student scolds him in front of his entire class. Carlos is embarrassed and talks back to his teacher, and she gives him detention. Carlos, being further upset about the fight with his parents and his detention, gets in an altercation, a minor altercation, later that day in the cafeteria. Rather than discuss the problem and help the students resolve the conflict, police immediately detain and arrest and detain both students. Later that day, Carlos has spent an entire afternoon in juvenile detention. He now has an arrest record, his parents are upset with him, and his future is damaged. Now let's compare that to restorative disciplinary policies in schools. In this situation again, Carlos has gotten into a fight with his parents before leaving for school and is running late. When Carlos arrives to school, he is met with welcoming teachers and staff, smiling and welcoming all the students. Carlos is again late to first period, but instead of scolding him, his teacher discusses it with him kindly and schedules an appointment with the counselor to discuss the issues. Later that day, in Carlos's altercation in the cafeteria, peers and staff step in to help evaluate the situation and solve the conflict between the two students. Later that day, rather than having an arrest record after that altercation, Carlos and other students offer to clean up the cafeteria, and counselors schedule a meeting with Carlos and his parents after school to discuss the disruptions and how to solve their problems at home. Restorative discipline is the most effective and just way to implement discipline in schools. When I imagine my children in school, I imagine them surrounded by students, teachers, and administrators that love and care about them. I picture an environment in which my children will be treated fairly. It is a safe haven where they can go to learn and grow, and they don't have to live in fear of being suspended or expelled over just one small mistake. I know that the only way to achieve this goal of justice and fairness in our schools is to do away with zero-tolerance policies and enact and implement restorative disciplinary policies in all U.S. schools and schools around the world.